Some people ask me, how do you find all these good stories? And they say, is there a book that I can get with all those good stories in there? Well, it's really quite a simple process. All you have to do is research about 25 stories and reject 24 of them, and you have a good story. It's just that simple. It takes a very long time to find good stories. And no, there aren't any books that have them all in nicely lined up for you. But today I want to think with you about Galatians chapter 5 and verse 1. Now, the King James Version of this says, "Stand fast, therefore, in the liberty by which Christ has made us free." And unfortunately, the punch behind that lesson sometimes is missed because, first of all, the words stand fast are not at the beginning of the sentence. They should be in the middle. And secondly, the word liberty and free are actually based on the same word. So, for example, the Berean Standard Bible translates it, "It is for freedom that Christ has set us free. Stand firm then, and do not be encumbered once more by a yoke of slavery." In other words, Christ set us free so that we could go on living free. He didn't set us free so we could go back into bondage. In the case of the Galatians, into legalism, but just as easily into bondage of bad habits or bondage of sinful thoughts or whatever it might be. But I want to think about this subject of freedom and to realize that freedom is contagious. And when enslaved people see free people, they want to be free too. And if Christians live in true freedom, it should make others want the same freedom. I think of a man who had been a slave to drugs for his whole life. And when he went to prison of all things, he met a bunch of men who used to be slaves to drugs as well. But Christ had set them free. Instead of filling their bodies with drugs, their souls were filled with joy and peace and believing. And he wanted to get in on it too. Well, now this story occurs on Thanksgiving Day, or the day after Thanksgiving, 1970. This was the height of the Cold War. The Berlin Wall still blocked freedom from East German citizens. And there was a young man there, 24 years of age, named Karl Bley. His brother Eric had made it out of East Germany to the United States in 1955, and he and his wife had a successful machine-building operation near Chicago. And for over 15 years, Karl and his brother Eric wrote letters back and forth using code, and Karl, he pled with his brother to find some way that he could escape the bondage that he felt in East Germany. Well, they hatched a daring plan. There was an East German cruise ship that would leave the Baltic and travel over, skirting the Florida coast, and then landing in Cuba, which of course is also a communist country. And so he decided that he would take a daring leap off the ship into the sea. Now, the ship would be traveling about 18 knots through choppy seas. It was a 40-foot drop from the deck down to the sea. And of course, they're shark-infested waters. And so there was the powerful suction of the ship's props he had to escape, and it really was a dicey thing, and the communists weren't going to let them go easily. Well, they needed sea-air coordination, and so his brother traveled to Florida, found a pilot who was willing to buzz the ship at an appropriate time as a signal that the boat was in place, and then to find a sea captain who would take a fast boat out to rescue his brother. They had also made arrangements with some pilots who were flying between Florida and the Bahamas over that cruise line's path, and they were to watch to make sure that they would have advanced warning as to when the ship would be close to the Florida coast, down to the Florida Keys. Unfortunately, they didn't see it whenever it went through. And so the brother, Eric, got up one morning, Thanksgiving Day. He was going to go down to the airport and do some recon flights with this pilot in this little single-engine plane. When he looked across the sea, it was still dark. He could see the lights of the cruise ship. They had almost missed it. It was too late now for the captain to go and get his ship, and so he rushed down to the nearest marina and borrowed an open 22-foot skiff, outboard motor, which was having engine problems, started off from the harbor. The engine conked out, got it going, went a little further, conked out again. They thought they were going to have to abort the mission. Nonetheless, the pilot saw that the captain did get the boat going, made his way towards the stern of the cruise ship, and so at that moment, the pilot buzzed the deck, and it seemed that no one was going to jump, but then finally they saw the man jump overboard, drop the 40 feet to the sea, and begin to make his way clear of the stern of the ship, and the little skiff headed in to pick him up. But then, all of a sudden, they noticed a second man jump into the sea. Now, Carl had a life vest on him. Under his jacket, he had a plan. He had made arrangements. But someone had seen him jump and thought, well, I'm going to jump too. That person who jumped was a medical doctor who was hoping against hope that he'd have a chance at freedom. And then a second medical doctor jumped, and a third. 3 medical doctors, for the sake of freedom, were willing to take this leap in the dark into the shark-infested waters to escape and to hope against hope that this little boat would rescue them too. Well, the big cruise ship began to turn in such a rapid form. The whole ship was tilting as it rushed to turn 180 degrees and begin to chase the men who had jumped from the rear deck of the ship. Thankfully, the captain of that little skiff was skilled. He was able to pull these men out of the sea and rush to shallow water where the cruise ship couldn't come. And so these 4 men, all on the influence of one man's leap to freedom, followed him and jumped into the sea, if only they could have chance at freedom as well. You know, there's a certain level of risk in the Christian life. If we're going to be free, we were made free, we were set free, and he set us free to live in freedom. And that freedom involves a certain level of risk. There's risk in love. There's risk in evangelism. There's risk in missionary work. There's risk in raising a family in a hostile environment. Risk in opposing the world view, the surrounding environment, to stand up for Jesus. Yes, there's risk, but there's freedom. Freedom in Christ. And if the Son makes you free, then you are free indeed.